My name is Alice Harper. I am 18 years old, and I live in West Lafayette, Indiana. I woke up on my 18th birthday expecting noise. I thought there might be balloons, or maybe just the smell of pancakes. Instead, the house was completely silent. I walked down the hallway in my socks. The kitchen was empty. There was no card on the table. There was only a bright yellow sticky note stuck to the stainless steel fridge. It was in my stepmother's sharp handwriting. At Attorney Brooks, back late. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my stepsister, Morgan. We're handling something important. Don't wait up. A cold feeling started in my stomach. I walked into my father's home office. On the center of his mahogany desk sat a stack of papers. It was a photocopy of a new will. I saw my name, Alice, but a thick red marker line was drawn straight through it. I was crossed out. Erased. Everything was going to them. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. Instead, I remembered what my grandmother told me years ago. I walked to the wall safe and opened the trust documents she had left for me. Today was my birthday. That meant today, I became the sole trustee. I owned this house. I picked up my phone and dialed the lawyer. I had 12 hours to sell everything before they got home. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Alice Harper. I am 18 years old. To understand why I sold the house in 12 hours, you have to understand that it was never really my home. Not after I turned 4 years old. That was the year my life split into two parts, before Sandra and after Sandra. My biological mother died before I turned 1. I don't have memories of her, only photographs. In the pictures, she looked soft and kind. She had messy hair and a smile that reached her eyes. My father used to look like that too in the old albums. He looked happy. He looked like he had a light inside him. But that light went out when she died, and he never really turned it back on for me. He was just a shape in the house, a shadow that moved from the bedroom to the office. Then he met Sandra. It happened fast. 1 month they were dating, and the next month she was moving in. She didn't come alone. She brought boxes of expensive clothes, a smell of heavy floral perfume, and her daughter, Morgan. Morgan was a year younger than me. She was cute, loud, and demanding. From the very first day, the dynamics were set in stone. Sandra walked into the living room, looked at the old blue armchair that had been my mother's favorite, and frowned. "That's hideous," she said. "It has to go." My father didn't argue, he just nodded. "Whatever you want, honey." That became the motto of our lives. Whatever Sandra wanted, Sandra got. And whatever Morgan wanted, Morgan got double. I became the extra child, the leftover. I remember one dinner when I was 7. Sandra had made a roast chicken. It smelled delicious. I was hungry after playing outside. She served my father a large piece. She served herself. Then she served Morgan the drumstick, the best part. She looked at the empty platter, then at me. "Oh, Alice," she said, her voice high and fake. "I didn't realize you were so hungry. There's plenty of salad left." I looked at my dad. I waited for him to say something. I waited for him to say, "Give her some of mine," or "That's not fair." He didn't look up from his plate. He just kept eating. That silence hurt more than the hunger. It told me exactly where I stood. I was the ghost in the corner. I was the one who had to be quiet, the one who had to be grateful for the scraps. As we grew up, the difference between Morgan and me became a chasm. Morgan got the big bedroom with the bay window. I got the small room that used to be a sewing closet. Morgan got new clothes for school every September. I got her hand-me-downs, even though she was younger than me, because she was growing faster, according to Sandra. I stopped complaining. Complaining only made it worse. If I cried, Sandra would sigh and tell my father I was being emotional and difficult. My father would look at me with tired eyes and say, "Alice, please just keep the peace." Keeping the peace meant Alice staying silent. Keeping the peace meant Alice disappearing. The only person who saw me was my grandmother, Evelyn. She was my father's mother, but she couldn't stand Sandra. She saw right through the fake smiles and the sweet voice. Grandma Evelyn lived in a small cottage about 20 minutes away. Her house smelled like lavender and old paper. It was my sanctuary. When I was 12, Grandma Evelyn sat me down at her kitchen table. She made me a cup of hot cocoa with extra marshmallows. She looked serious. "Alice," she said, "I need to tell you something, and you need to keep it a secret. Can you do that?" I nodded. "Yes, Grandma." "Your father is a weak man," she said plainly. "He lets that woman run his life, and he lets her push you aside. It breaks my heart, but I can't change him. But I can protect you." She reached across the table and held my hand. Her skin was paper-thin, but her grip was strong. I have set up a trust, she said. This house your father lives in, the big house, it's legally mine. I bought it years ago when your grandfather was alive. Your father just lives there. When I die, the house goes into the trust. And on your 18th birthday, you become the trustee, the sole trustee. I didn't understand all the legal words. What does that mean? It means the house will belong to you, she whispered. Not your father, not Sandra, not Morgan, you. It is your lifeboat, Alice. They are going to try to take everything from you. They will try to make you small. But this trust is your power. Don't tell them, promise me. I promise, I said. They think the house is in your father's name, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. Let them think that. Let them feel safe. But when you turn 18, you do what you need to do. I held that secret close to my chest like a shield. Every time Sandra made a snide comment about my hair, every time Morgan laughed at my old shoes, I touched the imaginary key in my pocket. One day, I thought, one day this will be different. But waiting for that day was harder than I imagined. By the time I was 16, the emotional neglect had turned into financial abuse. It wasn't just that they didn't buy me things. It was that they expected me to pay for their lives. My father's business wasn't doing as well as he pretended. Sandra spent money faster than he could make it. She needed to maintain the image of the perfect, wealthy family. That meant new cars, expensive vacations, and club memberships. Someone had to pay for the gaps, and somehow that someone became me. I started working the day I turned 14. First, it was babysitting neighbors' kids. Then, I spent my winters shoveling driveways. I would wake up at 4 a.m., shovel 3 driveways in the freezing Indiana cold, and then go to school with blisters on my hands. When I turned 16, I got a job at a coffee shop downtown. I worked every day after school from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. and double shifts on weekends. I wanted to save for college. I wanted to save for a car. But my family had other plans. It started small. Alice, Sandra said one evening, leaning against the counter while I made a sandwich for dinner. We're a little short on the electric bill this month. Since you're working now, it's only fair you contribute. You use the lights, don't you? It sounded reasonable. I wanted to be a good daughter, so I gave her $200, but it didn't stop there. The next month, it was the water bill. Then it was the internet. You're the one always on that laptop doing homework, Morgan sneered. You should pay for the Wi-Fi. So I paid for the Wi-Fi. Then came the family fund. Sandra announced that we all needed to chip in for household repairs. She put a big glass jar on the counter. Every Friday, when I brought home my tips and my paycheck, she would stand there watching me. Family helps family, Alice, she would say. I would put half my paycheck in the jar. But I never saw that money go toward repairs. The leaky faucet in my bathroom never got fixed. The crack in my bedroom window stayed there, letting in the cold draft. Instead, I saw where the money went. I saw it when Morgan came home with new cheerleading uniforms. Mom bought me the deluxe package, she squealed. It comes with the customized bag. I saw it when Sandra came home with a new set of patio furniture. We needed a refresh for summer, she said, sipping wine on the new lounge chair. I saw it when my father drove up in a leased Lexus. Business image is everything, Alice, he told me when I stared at the shiny car. You have to spend money to make money. They were spending my money. I was wearing shoes with holes in the soles. I taped them up with duct tape and colored it with black marker so no one would notice. I skipped lunch at school because I didn't have $5. Meanwhile, Morgan was taking private tennis lessons. Morgan was going to Finding Herself camps in California. Morgan was getting weekly manicures. I felt like a battery they were draining dry. I was the live-in ATM. One night I came home late from the coffee shop. My feet were throbbing. I had burned my hand on the espresso machine. I walked into the kitchen and they were all eating takeout sushi, the expensive kind. There was no plate for me. Oh, Sandra said, not looking up from her phone. We figured you ate at work. There's some rice left in the container if you want it. I looked at the table. There was easily $100 worth of food there. That was my entire week's earnings. Did you use the money from the jar? I asked. My voice was quiet. Sandra's head snapped up, her eyes narrowed. Excuse me, the family fund, I said. Did you use it for sushi? Don't you dare take that tone with me, Sandra hissed. After everything we do for you, we put a roof over your head. We keep you clothed. You are so ungrateful, Alice, just like your mother. My father sat there, dipping a shrimp tempura into soy sauce. He didn't look at me. Dad, I said, he sighed. Alice, don't start an argument. Just go to your room. I went to my room. I sat on my bed in the dark. I didn't eat the cold rice. That night, I stopped putting cash in the jar. I opened a secret online bank account that sent no paper statements. I started hiding my money. I told them my hours got cut. I told them I wasn't getting tips. They got angry. They called me lazy. They called me selfish. I need a new dress for prom. Morgan screamed at me one afternoon. Mom said you would pay for it. I don't have any money, I lied. I had $2,000 in my secret account. You're a liar, Morgan yelled. She pushed me, hard. I stumbled back and hit my shoulder against the wall. Sandra walked in. She saw me holding my shoulder. She saw Morgan red-faced and screaming. Alice, why are you upsetting your sister? Sandra said. She pushed me, I said. Stop playing the victim, Sandra snapped. If you aren't going to contribute to this family, then you don't get the perks of this family. No dinner for you tonight. I didn't care about dinner. I cared about the math. I calculated every dollar they had stolen from me. I kept a notebook hidden under a loose floorboard in my closet. I wrote down dates. I wrote down amounts. I saved receipts I found in the trash. Patio furniture, $1,200. Paid with cash, my cash. Morgan's cheer camp, $800. Dad's golf clubs, $1,500. They thought I was stupid. They thought I was just a quiet, submissive girl who would work until she died to keep them comfortable. They didn't know I was counting. And they didn't know I was waiting. My grandmother's health started to fade when I was 17. It started with small things. She would forget where she put her tea. She would call me by my father's name. But she had moments of crystal clarity. Moments where the fog lifted and she was sharp as a knife. I visited her every Sunday. It was the only time I felt safe. I would brush her hair and tell her about school. I didn't tell her about the money Sandra stole. I didn't want to worry her. One afternoon, about 6 months before my 18th birthday, she grabbed my arm. Her grip was weaker now, her hands trembling. Alice, she rasped. Her eyes were intense. They are waiting. Who, Grandma? Your father, that woman, they are waiting for me to die. A chill went down my spine. Don't say that. It's true, she said. I can see it in their eyes when they visit. They look at the furniture, they look at the silver, they are counting their inheritance. She pulled me closer. Listen to me, the trust, do you remember? I remember, I said. The lawyer is Mr. Brooks, Robert Brooks. He has the papers. When I go, they will think they won. They will think the house goes to your father. He is the next of kin. That is how it usually works. She coughed, a dry, rattling sound. But the deed is already in the trust, she whispered. The trust owns the house. And you own the trust. Do not let them take it, Alice. They will try to guilt you. They will try to scare you. They will tell you that you are a child and you don't understand business. Do not listen. I won't, I promised. You are strong, she said. You are the only strong one in this family. Promise me you will take what is yours. I promise, Grandma. She died 2 months later. The funeral was a performance. Sandra wore a black designer dress that probably cost more than my car. She cried loudly in the front pew, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. She had hated Grandma Evelyn. She used to call her the old bat when she thought I couldn't hear. But today, she was the grieving daughter-in-law. My father looked numb. He shook hands with people and nodded, but he looked absent. Morgan spent the entire service texting on her phone, hiding the screen behind a hymn book. I didn't cry. Not there. I couldn't share my grief with them. It felt like throwing pearls into the mud. I sat in the back, stiff and silent. I said my goodbyes in my head. After the funeral, the family gathered at our house. Sandra was already planning the renovation. We can finally knock down that wall in the kitchen, she told her friend, holding a glass of wine. And Evelyn's cottage. We can sell that and put in a pool here, or maybe a guest house for Morgan. My stomach twisted. They weren't even waiting for the grass to grow on her grave. And the jewelry, Morgan chimed in. Grandma had those vintage pearls. I want those. I knew where the pearls were. They were in a safety deposit box that only the trustee could access. They belonged to me, but I said nothing. We have to wait for the will reading, my father said, loosening his tie. It's in a few months, on Alice's birthday actually, strange timing. It's just a formality, Sandra dismissed him. You're her only son, it all comes to us. Finally, we can live the way we deserve. She looked at me across the room. I was clearing the plates from the guests. Alice, hurry up with those dishes, she commanded, and then bring more ice. I walked into the kitchen. I gripped the edge of the sink until my knuckles turned white. Let them talk, I thought. Let them plan. They didn't know the house they were standing in, the kitchen they were planning to renovate, the very floor they were walking on. It didn't belong to them. It was a ticking time bomb, and I was holding the detonator. That brings us back to this morning. My 18th birthday. The silence in the house was heavy. I stood in my father's office, staring at the photocopied will on his desk. The red line through my name was violent. It was angry. I leave my entire estate to my son, with the understanding that he will provide for his wife Sandra and daughter Morgan. Alice is excluded from this bequest, as she has shown she is independent and capable of supporting herself. Independent. That was their word for, we don't want to help her. They had rewritten his will. They had manipulated him into cutting me out completely. They thought this piece of paper was the final word. They thought that because Grandma was dead, her assets flowed to my father, and my father had just signed them over to Sandra and Morgan. I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. It was the calm of a soldier who finally sees the enemy clearly. There was no more hope, no more wishing they would love me. The bridge was burned. I looked at the clock. It was 8:15 a.m. I walked to the wall safe behind the painting of the ship. I knew the combination. Grandma had taught it to me. Left 4, right 12, left 88. The heavy door clicked open. Inside was a blue folder. The Evelyn Harper Revocable Trust. I opened it. The language was dense, but the key clause was highlighted in yellow. Upon the death of Evelyn Harper, this trust becomes irrevocable. Upon the 18th birthday of Alice Harper, she shall assume the role of sole trustee and beneficiary. The trustee has full authority to manage, sell, or liquidate all assets, including the real property located at 14 Oak Lane. 14 Oak Lane. This house, I took the folder. I went to my room, I locked the door. My hands were steady. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for Mr. Brooks. He answered on the second ring. Brooks Law. Mr. Brooks, I said. It's Alice Harper. I'm 18 today. There was a pause, then a warm voice. Happy birthday, Alice. I've been waiting for your call. Your grandmother was very specific. They crossed my name out of Dad's will, I said. They think they own everything. Your father's will is irrelevant regarding the house, Mr. Brooks said sharply. The house never belonged to him. It belonged to the trust. And as of 12:01 a.m. this morning, you are the trust. What do you want to do? I looked around my small room. I looked at the crack in the window. I thought about the family fund. I thought about the red line through my name. I want to sell it, I said. Today, Mr. Brooks sounded surprised. That's very fast, Alice. I need it gone before they come back, I said. They are at your office right now, aren't they? Or they think they are. They have an appointment with my junior associate at 9 a.m. to discuss the will, Mr. Brooks said. I can keep them occupied for a few hours. I can delay them. Do it, I said. I need until noon. I have a client, Mr. Brooks said slowly. An investor. He buys properties for cash. He's been looking for a lot in that neighborhood. He won't pay full market value, but he will pay fast. And he doesn't care about inspections. Call him, I said. Tell him I'll take 20% under market if he can close by noon with a cashier's check. I'm on it, Mr. Brooks said. Alice. Are you sure? I have never been more sure of anything. I hung up. Next, I called a locksmith. I need an emergency rekey. All exterior doors. Can you be here in 20 minutes? I'll pay double. I'm on my way, the locksmith said. Next, I called a moving company. I don't need a full move. I just need a truck to take a few boxes to a storage unit. Immediate service. By 9 a.m., the house was buzzing with activity. The locksmith was drilling out the front door lock. The sound of the drill was the sweetest music I had ever heard. It sounded like freedom. Mr. Brooks called me back at 9:15 a.m. The investor is interested. He knows the property. He's driving over with the paperwork and the check. He can do a wire transfer immediately upon signing. Perfect, I said. I didn't pack much. I didn't want their things. I didn't want the furniture Sandra had bought with my money. I took my clothes. I took the photo album of my real mother. I took the teddy bear Grandma had given me. I took my laptop. I went into the kitchen. I took the glass jar labeled Family Fund. It was empty, of course. I left it on the counter, upside down. I went to the family computer in the den. I logged into my bank account, the one they knew about, and printed the transaction history. I highlighted every transfer to Sandra, every withdrawal for Morgan. I taped the pages to the refrigerator right next to Sandra's sticky note. At Attorney Brooks, back late. I took a black marker and wrote underneath it, House sold, get out. The investor arrived at 10:30 a.m. He was a short man in a suit. He walked through the house quickly. Good bones, he said. I'm going to tear it down and build 2 modern units. Does that bother you? Not at all, I said. Tear it down. We sat at the dining room table, the table where I was never allowed to speak. I signed the deed. My signature looked strong. Alice Harper, trustee, he made a call. Transfer the funds. 5 minutes later, my phone pinged. A notification from my secret bank account. The number was huge. It was more zeros than I had ever seen. It was done. The house was no longer ours, it was his. When do you need possession? I asked. I'm sending a demo crew tomorrow, he said. But the house is legally mine now. You have the right to secure it. I'm changing the locks, I said. My former tenants will be returning soon. They might be difficult. The investor handed me a card. If they cause trouble, call the police, it's trespassing. I nodded. I walked the investor to the door. The locksmith handed me the new keys. 4 shiny silver keys. I put one in my pocket. I locked the front door. The bolt slid home with a heavy, final thunk. It was 11:45 a.m. I sat on the front porch swing. I had my backpack next to me. The moving truck had already taken my few boxes to storage. I waited. The street was quiet. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. Then, at 12:15 p.m., I saw the Lexus turn the corner. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced myself to breathe. In, out, I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the owner, and they were just visitors who had overstayed their welcome. The car pulled into the driveway. Sandra was driving. She looked annoyed. My father looked confused. Morgan was in the back seat, wearing sunglasses. They got out of the car. Sandra saw me sitting on the porch swing. Alice, she yelled, marching up the walk. Why is the door locked? My key isn't working. She jammed her key into the lock again. It didn't turn. She rattled the handle. She looked at me furious. What did you do? She screamed. Open this door right now. We have had a terrible morning. Mr. Brooks wasn't even there. I stayed seated. I rocked back and forth gently on the swing. I know, I said calmly. I asked him to keep you busy. What? My father stepped forward. Alice, what is going on? Open the door. I can't, I said. Why not? Morgan whined, stepping out of the car. I need to use the bathroom. I looked at them. I looked at the people who had erased me. I can't open the door, I said, my voice steady and clear, because it's not my house anymore, and it's certainly not yours. I sold it, I said. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. The moment I hung up the phone with Mr. Brooks, the silence in the house changed. Before, the silence had felt heavy and oppressive, like it was waiting to crush me. Now, it felt like a blank canvas. It felt like holding a breath before a scream. I stood in the center of my father's home office. I looked at the mahogany desk where he had signed the papers to erase me. I looked at the leather chair where he sat and drank scotch while I scrubbed the floors. I looked at the bookshelves filled with books he never read, bought only to make him look smart. I felt a strange vibration in my hands. It wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. It was the feeling of an engine starting up after sitting cold for years. I had work to do. I walked out of the office and went straight to my bedroom. I didn't run. I walked with a purpose. I walked like I owned the floorboards beneath my feet, because for the next few hours I did. My room was small. It was the smallest room in the house, originally intended for sewing or storage. The walls were painted a dull beige because Sandra said paint was too expensive to waste on a room nobody sees. I pulled my old duffel bag from under the bed. It was dusty. I unzipped it, and the sound was loud in the quiet house. I started packing, but I didn't pack everything. I only packed the things that were truly mine. I packed the Purdue sweatshirt I had bought with my own money from the thrift store. I packed the 3 pairs of jeans that fit me. I packed my worn-out sneakers. I packed my laptop, which I had bought refurbished from a pawn shop 2 years ago. Then I went to the closet. I looked at the clothes hanging there. Most of them were old shirts of Morgan's that she had stained or stretched out. Sandra called them hand-me-downs, but they were really just trash she was too lazy to throw away. I left them. I left every single piece of clothing they had given me. I didn't want their fabric touching my skin anymore. I went to the bottom drawer of my nightstand. This was where I kept the things that mattered. I took out the wooden box Grandma Evelyn had given me for my 10th birthday. Inside was a stack of letters she had written to me over the years. To Alice, for when you need courage. To Alice, for when you feel alone. I put the letters in my backpack. I treated them like they were made of glass. I took out the photo album. It was small, just a cheap plastic thing, but it held the only evidence that my biological mother had existed. There was a picture of her holding me in the hospital. She looked tired but so happy. There was a picture of her pushing me on a swing. I put the album in the backpack next to the letters. Then I saw the teddy bear. His name was Barnaby. He was missing one eye and his fur was matted, but he was the only thing I had hugged for 10 years. I picked him up. I squeezed him once hard. "We're leaving, Barnaby," I whispered. I put him in the bag, that was it. That was my whole life. It fit into one duffel bag and one backpack. 18 years of existence, and this was all I had to show for it. It made me angry, but it also made me feel light. I wasn't leaving anything behind because there was nothing here for me to miss. My phone rang. It was the locksmith. "I'm outside," he said. I walked to the front door. A white van was pulled up in the driveway. A large man in blue coveralls was standing there holding a toolbox. "You Alice?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I need the locks changed, all of them, front door, back door, garage door." "Lost your keys?" he asked, walking up the steps. "No," I said, "I'm evicting squatters." He looked at me. He saw the determination in my face. He didn't ask any more questions. "All right," he said. "I'll get to work, cash or card." "Card," I said. "But I have the cash if you need it." While he worked on the front door, drilling out the old lock that my father had used to keep me out, I went to the kitchen. The kitchen was Sandra's pride and joy. It had marble countertops and stainless steel appliances that cost more than my tuition. I walked to the fridge. The sticky note was still there. "At Attorney Brooks, back late." I looked at it. I hated that handwriting. It was spiky and aggressive. I went to the family fund jar sitting on the counter. It was a large glass mason jar with a ribbon tied around it. Sandra had put it there 3 years ago. "We all contribute," she had said. But I was the only one who put money in. They were the ones who took it out. I picked up the jar. It was empty. I walked to the sink and smashed the jar against the porcelain. It shattered with a loud crash. Glass flew everywhere. The ribbon lay on the wet metal of the drain. I didn't clean it up. For the first time in my life, I made a mess and I didn't clean it up. It felt good. I went to the computer in the den. I printed out the bank statements. I taped them to the window, to the fridge, to the mirror in the hallway. I wanted them to see the math. I wanted them to see the numbers. At 10:30, the investor arrived. Mr. Henderson. He was a short, bald man who smelled like cigars. He walked through the house in 5 minutes. He tapped the walls. He looked at the floors. "It's dated," he said. "The layout is bad. I'm going to scrap it." "That's fine," I said. "You sure you have the right to sell this, kid?" he asked, looking at me. "You look young." I handed him the trust documents and my ID. "I'm 18 today," I said. "It's mine, and I want it gone." He read the papers. He nodded. "Smart grandmother," he said. "She tied this up tight. Your dad can't touch a brick of this place." We signed the papers on the dining room table. I signed my name, Alice Harper. Every stroke of the pen felt like cutting a chain. "Wire is initiated," he said, tapping on his phone. "You'll see it in 10 minutes. He stood up and shook my hand. "You've got guts," he said. "Most kids would be scared to do this." "I'm not scared," I said. "I'm just done." He left. The locksmith finished. He handed me 4 shiny new keys. I held them in my palm. They were cold and heavy. "Thank you," I said. I paid him. He drove away. The house was silent again. But now it was a different house. I walked out the front door. I put my key in the new lock. I turned it. Click. The deadbolt slid home. I was locked out. But more importantly, they were locked out. I sat down on the porch swing. I put my backpack next to me. I looked at the time on my phone. 11:45 a.m. They would be back any minute. I took a deep breath of the fresh air. I waited. The waiting was the hardest part. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Every car that passed made me jump. I forced myself to breathe. In for 4 seconds. Out for 4 seconds. I rehearsed what I was going to say. I had played this conversation in my head 1,000 times in the shower, but now it was real. At 12:15 p.m., I saw the silver Lexus turn onto our street. My stomach dropped. There it was. The car that Sandra had bought with the money meant for my braces. The car my father washed every Sunday while I mowed the lawn. I watched it come closer. It looked shiny and aggressive in the sunlight. I saw them inside. Sandra was driving. She had her sunglasses on. She was talking, her mouth moving fast. She was probably complaining about the traffic or the service at the coffee shop. My father was in the passenger seat, looking out the window. He looked checked out, as usual. Morgan was in the back, her head bent down, looking at her phone. The car slowed down and turned into the driveway. They didn't see me at first. The porch was in the shadow. Sandra put the car in park. She turned off the engine. I heard the doors open. I heard Sandra's voice. It was sharp and piercing. And the nerve of that receptionist, telling me Mr. Brooks was unavailable. We had an appointment. Maybe we got the date wrong, my father mumbled, stepping out of the car. I don't get dates wrong, David, Sandra snapped. You're the one who forgets things, just get the bags. They walked up the driveway. Sandra was holding a shopping bag from a high-end boutique. Morgan was holding a Starbucks cup. They walked right past the for sale sign the investor had stuck in the lawn. They didn't even notice it. They were so wrapped up in their own world, they didn't see the ground shifting beneath their feet. Then, Sandra looked up. She saw me sitting on the swing. She stopped. Her heels clicked on the pavement. Alice, she said, her voice was annoyed. What are you doing sitting out here? Why aren't you inside cleaning the kitchen? I told you to mop the floors before we got back. I didn't stand up, I just looked at her. I'm not cleaning the floors, Sandra, I said. I don't live here. She rolled her eyes. She walked up the steps to the front door. Don't start with your drama today, she said. I have a headache, just move out of the way. She reached for the door handle. She expected it to open. She turned it. It was locked. She frowned. She dug into her purse and pulled out her key ring. It was heavy with keychains, a fluffy pink ball, a miniature Eiffel Tower. She shoved her key into the lock. It didn't turn. She jiggled it. She pulled it out and jammed it in again. What the hell? She muttered. David, the key isn't working. My father walked up the steps carrying the boutique bag. Let me try, he said. He tried his key. It didn't work either. That's strange, he said. It feels like the wrong key. It's not the wrong key, Sandra yelled. It's the key I've used for 15 years. She turned to me. Her face was turning red. Alice, did you lock the deadbolt from the inside? How did you get out here? I stood up slowly. I picked up my backpack. The key doesn't work, I said, my voice calm and steady, because I changed the locks. They stared at me. Morgan looked up from her phone. What? I changed the locks, I repeated. About an hour ago. Why would you do that? My father asked, looking confused. Alice, that's very inconvenient. We need to get inside. You can't get inside, I said. Because it's not your house. Sandra laughed. It was a cruel, mocking sound. Oh, here we go, she said. Is this some kind of teenage rebellion? Did you read something online about taking back your power? Open the door, Alice, before I ground you for a month. You can't ground me, I said. I'm 18, and I'm the owner of this property. You're delusional, Sandra spat. David, do something. She's lost her mind. My father stepped toward me. He looked angry now. Alice, give me the new key, he demanded. This isn't a game. Open the door right now. No, I said. I am your father, he shouted. I own this house. I pay the mortgage. Actually, I said, you don't pay the mortgage. Grandma paid off the mortgage 10 years ago, and you don't own the house. The Evelyn Harper Trust owns the house. My father froze. His face went pale. How do you know about the trust? He whispered. Grandma told me, I said. She told me everything. She told me you were weak. She told me you would let Sandra spend it all. And she told me that on my 18th birthday today I would become the sole trustee. I pulled the blue folder out of my backpack. I held it up. I signed the papers this morning, Dad. I sold the house to an investor. He wired the money. It's done, the house belongs to him now. You sold it, Morgan screeched. You sold my house, where am I supposed to sleep? I don't know, I said. Maybe you can sleep in the Lexus, it cost enough. Sandra lunged at me. She dropped her purse and tried to grab the keys from my hand. You little thief, she screamed. Give me those keys, I'll kill you. I stepped back. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. She looked small. She looked desperate. Don't touch me, I said. I'm calling the police, she yelled. I'm having you arrested. She scrambled for her phone. Her hands were shaking so bad she dropped it. Call them, I said. I already did. The police car pulled up silently. I had requested a civil standby when I called, explaining that I was the owner and anticipated a hostile reaction from unauthorized occupants. 2 officers got out. One was Officer Miller, a man in his 50s with a kind but firm face. The other was Officer Sanchez, a younger woman who looked like she took no nonsense. Sandra ran down the driveway to meet them, crocodile tears already streaming down her face. Officer, thank God, she wailed, pointing a manicured finger at me. My stepdaughter has gone crazy. She locked us out. She's holding us hostage. Officer Miller walked up the driveway slowly. He looked at Sandra, then at my father, then at me. "Nobody is being held hostage if you're standing outside, ma'am," he said calmly. "What seems to be the problem?" "She changed the locks," Sandra sobbed. "It's our house. She's trying to steal it." Officer Miller looked at me. "Miss, is this true?" "My name is Alice Harper," I said. "I am the owner of this property. These people do not have a lease. They do not pay rent. I have sold the property and the new owner takes possession tomorrow. I have asked them to leave and they are refusing." I handed him the folder. He opened it. He looked at the deed of trust. He looked at the sale agreement. He looked at the wire transfer receipt. He showed it to Officer Sanchez. They nodded to each other. "This looks like a valid legal sale," Officer Miller said. He turned to my father. "Sir, is your name David Harper?" "Yes," my father said. He was leaning against the porch railing, looking like he might vomit. "Were you aware that this property was held in a trust?" I knew my mother had a trust," he stammered. "But I thought I was the beneficiary." "It says here Alice Harper is the sole beneficiary upon turning 18, the officer said. "And she turned 18 today." "But we live here," Sandra screamed. "We have rights, squatters' rights. You can't just kick us out." "Actually," Officer Sanchez said, stepping forward, "since there is no lease agreement, and the owner has formally trespassed you, you are technically intruders. However, given the circumstances, we usually allow a standby for you to collect essential belongings." She looked at me. "Miss Harper, are you willing to allow them entry to collect their things?" I looked at them. I looked at Sandra, who was red-faced and panting. I looked at Morgan, who was looking at her shoes. I looked at my dad, who wouldn't meet my eyes. "They have 15 minutes, I said. "One trip, essentials only, no furniture. No appliances, just what they can carry." "You heard her," Officer Miller said. 15 minutes. He took the key from me and unlocked the door. Sandra pushed past him, rushing inside. "My furs," she yelled. "I need my jewelry." I stood by the door with Officer Sanchez. I watched them scramble. It was pathetic. Sandra wasn't grabbing photo albums. She wasn't grabbing mementos. She was grabbing things that cost money. She came running out with 2 mink coats, a jewelry box, and a designer handbag. "Be careful with that." She snapped at my father, who was carrying a stack of files from his office. Morgan ran into her room. I heard her screaming. "Where is my iPad? Where are my boots?" She came out carrying an armful of clothes, tripping over a pair of high heels. "You're ruining my life," she screamed at me as she passed. "I hate you. I hope you die." "Hurry up," I said. "You have 5 minutes left." My father came out last. He was holding a small box. I saw what was inside. It was his watch collection. He stopped in front of me. "Alice," he said, "please, where are we going to go?" "We don't have any cash." Sandra spent the last of the savings on the renovation deposit. "The renovation?" I asked. "The one you were going to do on my house," he nodded shamefully. "Cancel the deposit," I said. "Maybe you can get it back. Use it for a motel." "Alice, I'm your father," he pleaded. "Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It meant everything to me," I said, my voice cracking for the first time. "It meant everything when I was 10 and hungry. It meant everything when I was 14 and shoveling snow to pay for your electric bill. It meant everything when you let them treat me like a servant." I looked him in the eye. "But it didn't mean anything to you. You chose them. Every single day for 14 years you chose them. Today I'm choosing myself." "Time's up," Officer Miller said. My father walked out. He looked broken. I followed them to the driveway. They shoved their things into the Lexus. It was overflowing. A fur coat was sticking out of the window. Sandra was sobbing hysterically now. "My china, my crystal. It's all in there." "It belongs to the demolition crew now," I said. They got into the car. My father started the engine. He didn't look back. They drove away. I stood there on the driveway. The officers stood with me. "You okay, miss?" Officer Miller asked. "Yes," I said. "I think I am." "You did the hard part," he said. "Good luck." They got in their cruiser and left. I was alone. The house was empty. The driveway was empty. I looked at the house one last time. It was just a shell. It had never been a home. I turned my back on it. I picked up my backpack. I started walking. I didn't look back. I walked to the bus station. It took me 40 minutes, but I needed the walk. I needed to feel my legs moving, taking me away from that street, away from that town. I bought a ticket to West Lafayette. I had been accepted to Purdue University months ago, but I had hidden the acceptance letter under my mattress. Sandra had told me I wasn't smart enough for college. She said I should go to trade school or just keep working at the coffee shop to support the family. I sat on the bus. I watched the cornfields of Indiana roll by. They were brown and dry, waiting for winter. I checked my bank account on my phone. The number was real. The wire transfer from the investor sat there, a string of digits that meant safety. I wasn't rich in the way Sandra wanted to be rich. I couldn't buy a yacht. But I could pay for tuition. I could pay for an apartment. I could buy food. For the first time in my life, I was safe. When I got to West Lafayette, I found a cheap motel. I stayed there for 3 days while I looked for an apartment. I found a small one-bedroom on the second floor of an old brick building. It had hardwood floors and big windows. It smelled like floor wax and old books. The landlord, a nice man named Mr. Henderson Funny, the same name as the investor, asked for a deposit. I wrote him a check. My hand didn't shake. I moved in on a Tuesday. I had nothing. No bed, no table, no chair. I went to a mattress store and bought a twin bed. I ordered it to be delivered. That first night, I slept on the floor in my sleeping bag. It was the best sleep of my life. There was no one yelling. There was no TV blaring reality shows from the living room. There was no anxiety about whether I had cleaned the sink well enough. There was just silence. Peaceful, holy silence. I started classes the next week. Aerospace engineering. It was hard. The math was advanced, and the other students seemed so confident. They had parents calling them, sending them care packages. I had no one calling me. I had blocked their numbers. But sometimes, late at night, I would see blocked notifications. Voicemail from Dad. Voicemail from Sandra. I never listened to them. I deleted them instantly. I didn't want their poison in my ears. I started to build a routine. Wake up at 6 a.m. Run, coffee, class, library, home. I cooked for myself. I made simple things, pasta, stir-fry, grilled cheese. But every bite tasted amazing because I had bought it. It was mine. No one was going to snatch it off my plate. No one was going to tell me I ate too much. I went to therapy. The university offered free counseling for students. My therapist was a woman named Dr. Eris. She was small and soft-spoken. "You have a lot of trauma," she told me after I described my childhood. "You were in survival mode for 18 years. Your brain is still waiting for the attack." "How do I stop it?" I asked. "By teaching your brain that you are safe," she said. "By building a life that feels safe." So I made friends. There was Sarah, a girl with bright red hair who sat next to me in physics. She was loud and funny and messy. "You're so organized," she told me one day, looking at my color-coded notes. "I have to be," I said. "Come study with us," she said. "We're ordering Thai food." I hesitated. I was used to being the outcast. I was used to being the one who wasn't invited. "Okay," I said. That night, sitting on Sarah's dorm room floor, eating pad thai and laughing about our professor's bad jokes, I felt something crack open inside my chest. I wasn't the extra child here. I was just Alice. They liked me. They didn't want my money. They didn't want me to clean. They just liked me. A year passed. It was my 19th birthday. I woke up in my own bed, in my own apartment. The sun was streaming through the curtains I had sewn myself. I walked into the kitchen. I made coffee in my French press. My phone buzzed. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't a guilt trip. It was a text from Sarah. "Happy birthday. We're coming over at 7 with pizza and cake. Be ready to party." I smiled. I walked out onto my small balcony. I looked out over the town. I thought about where I was a year ago. I thought about the girl who woke up to a sticky note and a crossed-out will. I thought about the girl who sat on the porch swing, terrified but determined. I wondered where they were. I had heard rumors from an old neighbor. Sandra had filed for divorce 6 months after the eviction. She took whatever money was left and moved to Florida. My father was living in a small apartment downtown. He was working as a consultant, trying to rebuild. Morgan had dropped out of college. I didn't feel happy about their failure. I didn't feel sad either. I felt indifferent. They were just people I used to know. They were characters in a bad book I had finished reading. I went back inside. I got dressed. I had a class at 10 a.m. Advanced aerodynamics. I walked to campus. The air was crisp and cold. I walked past the engineering building. I saw my reflection in the glass doors. I didn't look like a victim anymore. I stood tall, my shoulders were back, I looked strong. That night my apartment was full of noise. Sarah brought Ben and Maya. They brought balloons. They brought a cake that said to Alice, the rocket scientist in messy icing. We ate pizza. We drank cheap wine. We laughed until my sides hurt. At one point Ben asked, "So Alice, what's your story? You never talk about your family." The room went quiet. Sarah kicked him under the table. It's okay, I said. I looked at them. My chosen family. My family is right here, I said. I don't talk about my biological relatives because they aren't part of my life. They taught me how to survive, but you guys, you're teaching me how to live. Sarah hugged me. We're not going anywhere, Alice. Later, after they left, I cleaned up, I washed the plates, I threw away the pizza boxes, I enjoyed the cleaning, it was my mess. It was the mess of a happy life. I went out to the balcony one last time. I looked at the stars, I remembered Grandma Evelyn. I did it, Grandma, I whispered. I saved myself. I felt a sudden, deep sense of peace. It wasn't the loud, triumphant kind of victory. It was a quiet power. It was the knowledge that no matter what happened, I could handle it. I had walked through the fire and I hadn't burned. I was made of steel now. I turned off the lights. I locked my door, my safe, sturdy door. I lay down in my bed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I closed my eyes, and I slept.